Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like life has pulled you away from everything familiar? Like doors that were once open suddenly shut, people you trusted drifted away, and opportunities seemed to pause. It feels unfair, uncomfortable, even painful. But let me tell you something powerful. This is not rejection, it's redirection. Isolation is preparation, not punishment. Think about that for a second. When life pulls you away from familiar places, when people start distancing themselves, when opportunities seem to be on pause, it's easy to feel like you're being punished. It's easy to ask, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? But that's the wrong mindset, because what feels like punishment is actually preparation for something far greater than what you can currently see. Every breakthrough in life, whether in business, personal growth, or spiritual transformation, requires a season of isolation. Why? Because in order to step into your next level, you have to be ready for it. You have to be strong enough, wise enough, disciplined enough to handle the weight of the blessings that are coming your way. And that preparation doesn't happen in a crowd. It doesn't happen when you're distracted. It happens when you're alone, when you're stripped of comfort, and when you're forced to rely on something deeper than external validation. Look at the most successful people in the world. Athletes don't become champions in front of stadiums filled with fans. They put in the work alone. Hours of training, discipline, and refining their craft long before they ever step onto the field. Musicians don't master their instruments in the spotlight. They spend years in private practice, failing, learning, and perfecting their skills before the world ever hears their music. Even great leaders, innovators, and visionaries all have one thing in common. They've had seasons where they had to walk alone, seasons where they were separated from the noise so they could hear their true calling. But here's the challenge. Most people don't recognize isolation as preparation. They resist it, they fight it, they panic and try to force their way back into old environments, old relationships, and old ways of thinking that no longer serve them. And in doing so, they miss the entire purpose of their season of separation. Because here's the truth. If you're feeling isolated right now, it means you're being worked on. You're being sharpened, refined, and molded into the person you need to become to handle what's coming next. And if you rush the process, if you try to escape the discomfort too soon, you won't be ready when your moment arrives. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a tree, before it produces fruit, it has to be planted in darkness. It has to be buried in the soil, where no one can see it, where no one is applauding its progress. It has to develop roots, deep, strong roots that will sustain it when it finally breaks through the surface. And that process takes time, it takes patience, it takes trust. But when the seed finally emerges, when it grows into something strong and powerful, no one remembers the time it spent in the dirt. They only see the results. Your isolation is the soil. It's where you're growing, even if you can't see it yet. It's where you're being strengthened, even when it feels like nothing is happening. The version of you that will step into the blessings ahead is not the version of you that entered this season. You are evolving, you are transforming, you are becoming something greater than you were before. But here's the key, you have to embrace the process. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of resisting the discomfort, lean into it. Use this time to develop new skills, to refine your mindset, to build a foundation that cannot be shaken when your blessings arrive, because they are coming. And when they do, you'll look back on this season and realize that it wasn't punishment, it wasn't rejection, it was preparation for something so much bigger than you ever imagined. The power of separation is one of the most misunderstood principles of growth. When life starts pulling you away from people, situations, or habits that once felt comfortable, it's easy to feel abandoned, rejected, or like you're losing something valuable. But in reality, separation is often the first step toward transformation, because you cannot grow into your full potential while remaining attached to everything that is limiting you. Imagine trying to climb a mountain while carrying a heavy backpack filled with unnecessary weight. Every extra pound slows you down, drains your energy, and makes the climb harder than it needs to be. That's exactly what happens when you hold on to people, mindsets, and distractions that no longer align with your purpose. At some point, you have to make a choice. Do you continue carrying what's comfortable, even if it's slowing you down, or do you let go and step into the freedom of who you are meant to become? Separation is not rejection, it's redirection. When certain people leave your life, it's because they have served their purpose in your journey. Some people are meant for a season, not a lifetime. And if you try to hold on to relationships that were never meant to last, you'll end up stuck in the same place, unable to move forward. The truth is, not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Some people are comfortable with the version of you that they knew before, and the moment you start growing, they will either support your evolution or resist it. If they resist it, that's not a sign for you to stop growing, that's a sign for you to keep moving forward. This applies not just to people, but to habits and environments as well. Growth requires breaking free from old patterns that no longer serve you. If you want to step into a new level of success, you can't keep doing what you've always done. You have to separate yourself from distractions, from negativity, from the things that drain your energy and keep you stuck in cycles of frustration. Think about this. Every major transformation in nature requires separation. Before a butterfly can emerge, it has to go into a cocoon, isolated from the world. Before a tree can grow, its seed has to be buried beneath the ground, unseen and alone. Before gold can shine, it has to go through fire, where impurities are burned away. The same principle applies to you. Your period of separation is not meant to destroy you, it's meant to refine you. It's meant to remove the things that no longer align with your purpose so that you can step into something greater. But the challenge is that most people resist separation. They try to force relationships that no longer work, hold on to habits that no longer serve them, and stay in environments that are limiting their growth. And then they wonder why they feel stuck. If you're in a season where life is pulling you away from certain people, activities, or places, don't fight it. Pay attention. Ask yourself, what is this separation trying to teach me? What am I being prepared for? What do I need to let go of in order to move forward? Because when you start seeing separation as preparation rather than loss, everything changes. One of the most powerful things you can do in life is embrace solitude. Because in solitude, you gain clarity. When you're constantly surrounded by noise, by people's opinions, distractions, and external pressures, it's hard to hear your own thoughts. But when you separate yourself, even temporarily, you create the space to listen, to reflect, to understand what truly matters. Many of the most successful and fulfilled people in the world intentionally separate themselves from distractions so they can focus on their vision. They take time away to think, to plan, to grow. They know that in order to build something great, they need mental clarity and spiritual alignment. And that kind of clarity doesn't happen when you're caught up in the noise of everyday life. It happens when you step away, even when it's uncomfortable. So if you're experiencing a season of separation, don't fear it. Embrace it. It's an opportunity. It's a chance to let go of what no longer serves you, to sharpen your focus, and to align yourself with the future you're meant to step into. Because when the time comes for you to rise, you'll realize that the things you thought you lost were never losses at all. They were simply the weight you needed to drop in order to soar. Your mindset in isolation determines your breakthrough. It's easy to think that isolation is something happening to you rather than for you. When you find yourself pulled away from the familiar, when relationships fade, when opportunities slow down, and when you feel like life has placed you in a waiting room with no clear exit, it's natural to get frustrated. But frustration won't move you forward. Fear won't move you forward. Complaining won't move you forward. The only thing that will determine how you emerge from isolation is your mindset. The way you think in isolation will shape what happens after isolation. If you see this season as a punishment, you will shrink in discouragement. But if you see it as preparation, you will grow in wisdom, strength, and purpose. You cannot always control the circumstances that put you in isolation, but you can always control how you respond to them. And that response is everything. Think about two people placed in the same situation. Both are removed from their comfort zones. Both feel uncertain about the future. Both have to navigate solitude. One spends the time complaining, blaming others, and feeling sorry for themselves. The other spends the time growing, reading, learning, strengthening their mind, refining their vision, and preparing for the next chapter. When their season of isolation ends, one emerges stronger, wiser, and ready for the opportunities ahead. The other emerges bitter, unprepared, and stuck in the same place. The difference? Mindset. Your isolation is either going to break you or build you. The choice is yours. You have to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of resisting the silence, lean into it. What do you need to learn? What habits need to be broken? What weaknesses need to be strengthened? What dreams need to be refined? When you approach isolation with curiosity instead of frustration, you unlock its power. Every great leader, every innovator, every person who has ever made an impact has gone through a season where they had to walk alone. Why? Because isolation is where clarity is born. It's where distractions are stripped away, where your deepest thoughts surface, where you are forced to confront yourself without the noise of the outside world. And if you embrace that process, you will emerge with a level of self-awareness, vision, and resilience that most people never develop. But most people don't embrace the process. They resist it. They panic in the silence. They try to fill the void with distractions, mindless entertainment, empty conversations, unhealthy habits, anything to escape the discomfort of being alone with their thoughts. And in doing so, they waste the most valuable opportunity they have. Because isolation is not just about waiting. It's about working while you wait. It's about doing the internal work, the unseen work, the work that doesn't get applause but makes all the difference when your breakthrough arrives. It's about developing the mindset that says, I may be in isolation right now, but I am not wasting this time. I am sharpening my skills. I am refining my purpose. I am building myself so that when my moment comes, I am ready. Look at the greatest success stories in history. Before the spotlight, before the success, there was a season of solitude. There was a period where they were unknown, unrecognized, unseen, but instead of complaining, they used that time to grow. They trained, they studied, they built their mental, emotional, and spiritual foundation. And when their time came, they stepped into it fully prepared. That's what isolation is. It's your training ground. It's the space where you either rise or retreat. It's where you either develop discipline or fall into despair. So ask yourself, how are you using this season? Are you waiting passively for things to change, or are you actively becoming the person who can handle what's next? Are you letting doubt control you, or are you strengthening your faith? Are you sitting in frustration, or are you seeing this as an opportunity to transform? Because the truth is, how you handle this season determines what happens in the next. You don't get to choose when your breakthrough happens, but you do get to choose whether or not you'll be ready for it. So shift your mindset. Stop seeing isolation as a delay and start seeing it as development. Stop feeling like you're being left behind and start recognizing that you're being prepared for something greater. The people who understand this don't just survive isolation, they maximize it. And when their time comes, they don't just step into their blessings, they dominate them. Emerging stronger from isolation is what separates leaders from followers. Most people fear being alone. They associate isolation with weakness, failure, or rejection, but in reality, isolation is where true strength is built. It's the season where the weak break and the strong rise. It's where you discover who you really are when no one is watching, when no one is cheering, and when there's no external validation to keep you going. Greatness is never developed in the crowd. It's forged in the moments of solitude, in the unseen work, in the times when you have to rely on nothing but your own vision, discipline, and faith. Every great leader, every world changer, every person who has ever done something extraordinary had to go through a season where they walked alone, not because they weren't good enough, not because they weren't capable, but because they needed that time to develop the resilience and wisdom required to handle the weight of their destiny. Think about it. Leaders are not born in comfort. They are not shaped by applause. They are built in the moments where they have to push through uncertainty, fight through doubt, and develop the kind of mindset that can withstand pressure. Because the higher you rise, the more resistance you will face. And if you haven't built the mental, emotional, and spiritual strength in your season of isolation, you won't be able to handle the challenges that come with elevation. This is why separation is necessary. You cannot grow into a leader while staying in the same place, around the same people, with the same habits that kept you small. Leadership requires transformation, and transformation always comes with a price. Sometimes that price is losing people, leaving behind old ways of thinking, and stepping into the unknown. The problem is, most people don't want to pay that price. They want success without struggle. They want influence without growth. They want results without the process. But it doesn't work that way. The process is what makes you. The process is where you develop the clarity, the discipline, and the strength to not only reach your next level, but to sustain it when you get there. Think about the greatest leaders in history. They all had a period where they had to walk alone. Before they could impact the world, they had to be set apart. They had to break away from the ordinary, from the distractions, from the limitations that surrounded them. And in that process, they became unshakable. That's the key. Your season of isolation is not about keeping you down. It's about making you unshakable. It's about building you into the kind of person who can handle leadership, who can handle responsibility, who can stand strong in the face of opposition. Because here's the truth. When you step into your purpose, not everyone will support you. Not everyone will understand you. Some people will doubt you. Some will criticize you. Some will even try to pull you back to who you used to be. And if you haven't built the strength to stand firm in your vision, you'll fold under pressure. You'll shrink back. You'll start questioning yourself, doubting yourself, and hesitating when you should be moving forward. But if you've embraced your season of isolation, if you've used that time to build your confidence, to sharpen your skills, to strengthen your faith, then when the moment comes for you to step into your calling, you won't just step in, you'll own it. Because here's the thing about true leaders. They don't need permission to rise. They don't wait for validation. They don't wait for the crowd to approve of them. They step forward with confidence because they've already been through the fire. They've already been tested. They've already developed the mindset, the resilience, and the inner strength to handle whatever comes their way. So, if you're in a season where you feel alone, where you feel separated, where you feel like no one understands what you're going through, understand this: you are not being left behind. You are being set apart. This is your training ground. This is your opportunity to grow into the person who can handle the blessings, the responsibility, and the influence that is coming your way. Most people won't do the work. Most people will stay in their comfort zones. But leaders rise. Leaders embrace the process. Leaders use their season of isolation to become unshakable, unstoppable, and undeniable. And when the time comes for them to step into their purpose, they don't just fit in, they stand out. They don't just take opportunities, they create them. They don't just follow, they lead. That's the difference. That's why isolation is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Because when you emerge from this season, you won't be the same. You'll be stronger, wiser, more powerful than you've ever been before. And the world won't be able to ignore you.